The rain on my cottage roof was the only sound in my world. A steady, soothing drumbeat that told me I was safe, I was alone, I was forgotten. Exactly how I preferred it. I stirred the stew over the fire, the scent of herbs filling my small home. This solitude was hard won, a peace I guarded like a dragon guards its hoard. Then the drumbeat changed. A new rhythm, heavy and deliberate, broke through the patter of the rain. A knock. My blood froze solid in my veins. No one ever came here. The knock came again, not a request, but a declaration. It shook the very timber of my door. My spoon clattered into the pot as my hand flew to my chest. Fear, cold and sharp, coiled in my stomach. I crept forward, my voice a fragile whisper. Who? Who is there? The silence that followed was heavier than the knock. Then a voice, deep enough to vibrate through the woods, spoke. Open the door, Alara. He knew my name. Dread whispered that running was useless. With a trembling hand, I pulled the bolt back and opened the door just a crack. The figure outside stole the very breath from my lungs. He was immense, towering, his broad shoulders blocking the stormy twilight. His clothes were fine but travel-worn, and his eyes. They held the ancient gold of a predator. He looked at me, and his gaze felt like a physical touch. I am Kalen, he said, his voice a low rumble of thunder, and I have crossed mountains and forests to find you. I could only stare, my heart hammering against my ribs. Why? The word was a desperate plea. His intense gaze never wavered. Because the stars have whispered it, and the ancient runes have confirmed it. You are the one who walks alone, and I was told. I am here to build a legacy with you. Legacy. The word hung between us, immense and terrifying. This wasn't a social call. This was a claim, and as the rain sheeted down behind him, I knew my life of quiet solitude was over. I stumbled back from the doorway, my mind reeling. You have the wrong person, I insisted, my voice trembling with a fear I couldn't disguise. There's been a mistake, please just go. Kalen didn't move. He simply stood there, a statue carved from shadow and storm, water streaming from his dark hair. There is no mistake, Alara, he said, his tone firm yet not unkind. The signs are precise. The last daughter of the forgotten crescent moon, living in solitude at the edge of the whispering woods, it is you. Forgotten crescent moon? The word sparked a distant, faded memory. My grandmother's stories, tales she said were just fables. I shook my head, backing toward the fire. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just me. He took one single step inside, and my small cottage seemed to shrink around him. May I come in? The storm is fierce, and this is a conversation for a hearth, not a threshold. It wasn't really a question. I nodded mutely, watching as he ducked his head and entered. He filled the space, his presence a tangible force that made the air crackle. He didn't sit, just stood near the door, giving me space. My people are the lichen of the Ironwood Mountains. We are guardians, ancient and bound by prophecies that guide our continuity. Our king must find a queen of a specific lineage, one thought lost to time. For generations, we searched, I searched. He paused, those golden eyes softening with something that looked like awe. And I found you. I wrapped my arms around myself. So I'm just a lineage, a bloodline to you? For the first time, a flicker of pain crossed his formidable features. No. You are the answer to a centuries-old hope. You are a partner meant to stand beside me, to help me lead, to help me build a future, the heirs we would have. They would be a symbol of a new, united beginning. The word heirs made my face flame. This is madness. You can't just appear and say these things. I understand your fear, he said, his voice dropping to a soothing rumble. And I swear to you on my honor, I will not force you. I ask only for a chance, a month. Let me stay here at the edge of your clearing. Let me prove my intent is pure. Let me show you the man behind the title, and you can show me the woman behind the solitude. A month. The request was staggering, yet his oath not to force me felt like a lifeline. I looked at him, at the earnest intensity in his eyes, and against every instinct screaming for self-preservation, I heard my own voice, small and uncertain. A month. You stay outside, and then. We decide. The first week was a silent siege. I would peer through my window to see Kalen across the clearing, having built a lean-to against the weather with an efficiency that spoke of a life lived under open skies. He was always there, a constant, quiet presence. He didn't approach unless I ventured out for water. One morning, as I struggled to lift a heavy log for the firewood pile, he was suddenly beside me. "Allow me," he said, his voice careful, neutral. Before I could protest, he lifted the log as if it were a twig and placed it perfectly on the stack. "Thank you," I mumbled, not meeting his eyes. "I could have managed." "I do not doubt your strength," he replied quietly. "But sometimes strength is in allowing help." He walked back to his post without another word. The next day, a strange, beautiful rabbit, silver-flecked and plump, was left neatly at my doorstep. Game from his hunts, always the finest cut, appeared regularly. It was his way of providing without demanding conversation. My curiosity began to chip away at my fear. One afternoon, a fierce gale blew in, threatening to tear the shingles from my roof. As I heard a particularly violent crack, I rushed outside to see Kalen already there, swiftly securing the loose wood with nails he seemed to produce from nowhere. He worked with a focused calm that belied the raging wind. "It's not safe out here," I called over the storm. He glanced down, rain sheeting off his profile. "Your safety is what matters. Get inside, Alara. I will ensure your home is secure." I didn't go inside. I stood under the eaves, watching him work, this king of a legendary people, mending my roof. When he finished, he jumped down, landing softly. "It should hold now." I saw a long, shallow cut on his forearm from a flying splinter. "You're hurt." He glanced at it. "It is nothing." "Come inside," I said, the words leaving my mouth before I could stop them. "Let me clean that." A look of profound surprise crossed his face, followed by a warmth that made my breath catch. That was the first time he sat at my hearth. I cleaned the cut, my hands unsteady. He was so still, so patient. "Why me truly, Kalen?" I whispered, finally asking the real question. He was silent for a long moment. "Your solitude called to me," he said, his voice low. "Not because you are lonely, but because you are complete alone. That is a different kind of strength. My world is one of constant noise, of duty, of pack. I need that strength. Our people need that balance." He looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't see a predator or a king. I saw a man carrying a weight almost too heavy to bear, hoping I might help him carry it. The fear didn't vanish, but something new, something tender and terrifying, began to take root beside it. After the night of the storm, a tentative truce settled between us. Kalen began joining me for the evening meal, always bringing something he had caught or foraged. We spoke of simple things at first: the habits of forest creatures, the properties of different herbs, the patterns of the stars. His knowledge was vast and ancient. One evening, as we sat by the fire, I gathered my courage. "What is it like, the ironwood?" His eyes grew distant, glowing softly in the firelight. "It is mighty. Trees so tall they seem to hold up the sky. Air so crisp it cleanses the soul. Our home is carved into the mountain itself, warm and full of light. From the highest ledge, you can see the world stretch out forever." His description was painted with such love, it stirred a longing in my own chest. "It sounds beautiful." "It is," he said, then his gaze focused on me. "It would be more so with you there." The directness of it still flustered me. "Kalen, I don't know the first thing about being a queen or about your ways. And I did not know the first thing about patience or the quiet joy of a shared silence until I came here, he countered gently. We would learn together. He then told me of his people, their loyalty, their fierce protectiveness, their deep connection to the land and each other. He spoke of his parents, wise rulers who had taught him that strength was for defending, not dominating. I found myself sharing pieces of my own past, my grandmother's stories, my choice to retreat from a world that felt too loud and demanding. We were two puzzle pieces from different pictures, yet somehow, the edges were starting to align. But the outside world would not be ignored. One morning, a stranger arrived at the edge of the woods. A trader, he claimed, lost and seeking directions. His eyes were too sharp, taking in everything about my cottage and the clearing. Kalen, who had been tending a snare line, emerged from the trees. The moment the stranger saw him, his friendly mask slipped, revealing a flash of sheer terror before he controlled it. My apologies, the man stammered, backing away. I didn't realize you had protection. He fled into the woods. Kalen watched him go, his expression grim. He was no traitor, he said, his voice a low growl. He was a scout. A chill that had nothing to do with the weather crept down my spine. A scout for who? Kalen turned to me, his face etched with new concern. For those who do not want this union to happen, my being here has been noticed. Your safety can no longer be assumed within these walls alone. The fragile piece of our clearing had been shattered. The mystery of why I was chosen was now wrapped in a darker, more dangerous question. Who would try to stop it? The incident with the scout changed everything. The clearing was no longer a sanctuary. It felt exposed. Kalen's watchfulness became a constant, protective shield. He taught me basic signs to look for: broken twigs in unnatural places, the sudden silence of birds, the scent of cold iron on the wind, which he said was anathema to his kind. There are factions, he explained one night, his voice tense. Some within broader Lycan society, and others from rival clans, who believe the old prophecies are a weakness. They fear a united legacy born of the ancient bloodlines. It would cement a peace and power they wish to break. I felt a surge of anger, hot and clean. So I'm a target because of a prophecy I didn't even know existed? You are a key, he corrected gently. And yes, to them, that makes you a target. I will not let them touch you, Alara. I swear it on my life. His vow should have comforted me, but it only fueled my fear for him. The thought of him being hurt because of me was unbearable. A few nights later, the threat became real. I was woken by a low, warning growl that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. I crept to the window. In the moonlight, I saw Kalen standing in the center of the clearing, facing three shadowy figures at the tree line. They were large, moving with a predatory grace that mirrored his own, but there was a malice in their stance he lacked. You stray too far from your mountains, Kalen, one hissed, and you chase fairy tales. Give us the girl. Her blood will end this foolish prophecy once and for all. Rage, pure and fierce, ignited within me. They spoke of me like I was a thing. Before I could think, I threw open my door and stepped out, a small knife from my kitchen in hand. She is not for you to take, I said, my voice clear and strong, surprising even me. All eyes turned to me. Kalen looked horrified. Ilara, go inside. The lead intruder laughed, a cruel sound. The little mouse has teeth, how charming. Kalen moved then. It was a blur of speed and power. He placed himself squarely between me and them, his form seeming to grow larger, more primal. You will leave, he commanded, authority ringing in every syllable. You will tell whoever sent you that the king of the Ironwood stands with his chosen, and the next one to step into this clearing will not leave it breathing. The air crackled with the promise of violence. The intruders hesitated, sensing the deadly truth in his words. With final snarls of frustration, they melted back into the shadows. Kalen didn't relax until the forest was silent again. He turned to me, his eyes blazing. You should not have done that. I will not hide in my home while you fight for me, I said, my hands still shaking but my resolve firm. He stared at me, his anger fading into something like awe. He reached out slowly and brushed a stray strand of hair from my face, his touch electrifying. Then it seems the prophecy was right, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. You are not just a queen to be protected. You are a queen who stands and fights. We leave for Ironwood at first light. It is the only place I can truly keep you safe. The decision was made. My solitary life was irrevocably behind me. I was walking into a world of ancient power, deadly politics, and a destiny I was only beginning to understand. And I was walking into it beside him. Leaving my cottage at dawn felt like shedding my own skin. Every familiar tree, every mossy stone was a farewell. I carried only a small pack, the weight of it nothing compared to the heavy uncertainty in my heart. Kalen walked beside me, a silent, reassuring presence, his senses tuned to the forest around us. The journey will take several days, he said, his voice low. We will move swiftly but safely. Do not fear the path, I know it like my own breath. I merely nodded, my throat too tight for words. We traveled not on a road, but on hidden game trails and across crystal clear streams. Kalen moved with an unerring instinct, his every step sure and silent. By afternoon, the gentle woods gave way to steeper, wilder terrain. The air grew cooler, sharp with the scent of pine and stone. As we navigated a rocky pass, Kalen suddenly stopped, his head tilted. He motioned for me to get down. My heart leapt into my throat. Crouched behind a boulder, I heard it, the faint crunch of gravel, out of rhythm with the forest. Kalen's eyes met mine, and in them I saw a fierce, protective fire. He pointed to a dense thicket of hawthorn. Stay there, do not move, do not make a sound. No matter what you hear. His command was absolute. Fear, cold and slick, washed over me. I scrambled into the thicket, the thorns snagging my cloak. I watched as Kalen turned, his posture shifting into something deliberately confrontational. Two figures emerged from the opposite tree line, different from the last, clad in dark leather, their eyes gleaming with a hostile light. Going somewhere, Your Majesty? One sneered. Without a royal escort, how vulnerable. My path is my own, Roderick, Kalen replied, his voice dangerously calm. Step aside. This is your only warning. The one named Roderick laughed. Or what, you'll kill us? You're soft, Kalen, chasing human legends. The true strength of the Lycan doesn't lie in dusty prophecies. They lunged. What happened next was a blur of terrifying, breathtaking power. Kalen met them with a controlled fury. There was no wild brawling, only efficient, devastating movements. He was a storm contained in a man's form. I saw him disarm one with a twist of his wrist, the blade clattering on stone. He used the other's momentum against him, sending him crashing into a tree trunk with a sickening thud. It was over in moments. Kalen stood over them, his chest heaving slightly. Tell your master, he said, each word dipped in ice, that my patience is at an end. The next challenger will not walk away. Now, leave. The two intruders scrambled up and fled, their bravado utterly shattered. Only when their sounds had completely faded did Kalen turn, his expression softening as he located me in the thicket. He approached, carefully pulling the thorns from my cloak. You are unhurt? He asked, his voice now gentle, a stark contrast to the commander of moments before. I could only manage a shaky nod, looking from him to the now empty pass. I had known he was strong, but seeing the reality of his power, the deadly grace with which he protected what he claimed as his, shifted something fundamental inside me. The fear didn't leave, but it was joined by a staggering sense of awe. This was the man who wanted to build a legacy with me. This was the world I was entering. The encounter left me quiet, lost in my own thoughts as we continued to climb. Kalen respected my silence, a testament to the understanding growing between us. As dusk painted the sky in violets and golds, he led us to a sheltered cave overlooking a vast, moonlit valley. He built a fire with swift efficiency. "We rest here tonight," he said, unpacking provisions. "You are safe." I sat by the fire, hugging my knees. The silence stretched, filled only by the crackle of flames. Finally, I found my voice. "Is it always like that? The challenges? The fighting?" Kalen poked the fire, shadows dancing on his face. "Not always, but a king's strength must be unquestioned. There are those, like Roderick, who believe our people should be conquerors, not guardians. They see alliance with ancient human lineages as a dilution." He looked at me, his gaze intense. "They are wrong. True strength is not in taking, but in preserving, in building something that lasts. That is the legacy I seek. And I am the cornerstone of that legacy," I said, not as a question, but a realization. "You are," he affirmed softly, "but not a stone, Alara. A foundation, yes, but living, vital. Your compassion, your quiet strength, the perspective of a world beyond the pack, these are the things that will make our rule just and lasting." He handed me a piece of travel bread. "Tell me, what is one thing you fear most about coming to Ironwood?" The question surprised me. I thought of the towering stranger at my door, the recent attacks. Being seen as an outsider, a weak human interloper, that your people will resent me and that I will fail you. My confession hung in the air. Kalen moved to sit closer, not touching, but his presence a solid comfort. "Listen to me," he said, his voice a low, earnest rumble. "You faced down intruders with a kitchen knife. You left your entire life behind on the word of a man you did not know, for a duty you did not ask for. There is no weakness in you. My people value courage and loyalty above all. They will see your heart as I do." His words wrapped around my fears, soothing them. "And if they don't," he smiled then, a small, sure thing, "then they will have to answer to me, and you will win them over in time. I have absolute faith in that." For the first time since this began, I felt a flicker of that same faith. Not just in the prophecy, but in him. In the sincere, patient, formidable man who saw more in me than I ever had. The fire between us was no longer just wood and flame. It was the slow, steady kindling of trust. The landscape grew more majestic and imposing with each passing day. The trees became true giants, their trunks wider than my cottage, their canopy blocking out the sun in a cathedral of green and gold. This was the edge of the ironwood. The air hummed with a strange, ancient energy that made the hair on my arms stand on end. "We are home," Kalen said, and the pride in his voice was a living thing. We emerged from the forest onto a wide, carved stone path that wound up the side of a mighty mountain. And then I saw it, Ironwood Hold. It wasn't a castle as I'd imagined, but a breathtaking integration of nature and craftsmanship. Dwellings and great halls were carved directly into the cliff face itself, their openings framed by living wood and flowing vines. Bridges of woven stone and living root spanned chasms. Smoke rose from cleverly hidden chimneys, and the sound of activity, distant voices, the clang of a forge, children laughing drifted down on the wind. It was vibrant, powerful, and alive. My steps faltered. Kalen paused, watching my face. "It is much," he said gently. Before I could respond, a figure detached from the shadows near the gate and strode toward us. He was an older lichen, with silver streaking his dark hair and wise, assessing eyes that scanned me in one swift, thorough glance before settling on Kalen. He placed a fist over his heart and bowed his head. My king, you return. Baron, my old friend, Kalen said, clasping the man's forearm warmly. I have returned and I have found her. Baron's gaze returned to me, not unkind, but intensely curious. So the tales are true. Welcome, Lady Alara. The hold has awaited your coming for many turns of the moon. His greeting was formal, correct. I dipped into a slight curtsy, my grandmother's lessons on manners surfacing from the depths of memory. Thank you, Baron. Your home is beyond anything I could have dreamed. A flicker of approval crossed Baron's stern features. Kalen looked pleased. Baron is my chief advisor and the closest thing I have to family here. You can trust him as I do. As we passed through the immense gates, made of petrified wood and gleaming ore, the world opened up. Lycan of all ages stopped what they were doing. Conversations died. Hundreds of eyes turned toward us. I felt the weight of their stares, a mix of awe, hope, skepticism, and raw curiosity. I kept my chin up, my hand resting lightly on Kalen's offered arm. I could feel the tension in him, ready to shield me from any slight. But no hostility came. Instead, as we walked the main thoroughfare, people began to bow. Not just to Kalen, but to me as well. A young child peeked out from behind her mother's skirts, her eyes wide. I offered her a small, genuine smile. The girl smiled shyly back before hiding her face. It was a small moment, but it broke the spell of my fear. This was not a den of monsters. It was a community, my new home. The reality of it settled over me, terrifying and magnificent all at once. My first days in Ironwood were a whirlwind of orientation and quiet observation. I was given chambers adjacent to Kalen's, spacious, airy rooms carved into the mountain, with a breathtaking view of the forested valleys below. They were furnished with simple elegance, and fresh flowers adorned a table. A thoughtful touch. Kalen gave me space to acclimate, but was never far. Baron became my guide, his initial formality warming into a respectful patience as he explained the hold's workings. The governance by council, the hunting rotations, the great library of etched stone, the gardens fed by mountain springs. It was a complex, thriving society. The people continued to watch me, but now their curiosity often came with a respectful nod or a murmured, "My lady." I spent hours in the gardens, learning the unique flora from a gentle elder named Mina. I visited the weavers, admiring their intricate work. I was trying, piece by piece, to belong. One afternoon, Kalen found me watching a training session in a lower courtyard. Young Lycan practiced forms with fluid grace under the instruction of a stern-faced commander. They are learning control, Kalen explained, coming to stand beside me. Our strength is a gift, but without discipline, it is a danger, to others and to ourselves. I watched the focused intensity of the youths. You must have excelled at this. He gave a humble shrug. I had my share of bruises. My father believed a king should know every aspect of his people's life, from the lowest duty to the highest art. I turned to him. I would like to learn. He blinked, surprised. Learn? Not to fight, I clarified quickly, but to understand. The control, the discipline, the philosophy behind it all. If I am to be here, I do not wish to be a decoration, Kalen. I wish to comprehend the heart of who you are, who we are. His expression softened into one of profound respect. Then I will teach you myself. We start tomorrow. True to his word, our lessons began. They were not about combat, but about awareness, balance, and breath. He taught me to listen to the subtle sounds of the hold, to feel the energy of the living mountain under my feet, to move with intention rather than reaction. In these quiet hours, the connection between us deepened into a seamless partnership. He was a patient teacher, and I was an eager student, but the peace was fragile. One evening, as Kalen and I reviewed council scrolls in his study, Baron entered, his face grave. A rider from the Silvermane clan has arrived. He bears a message for your ears only, my king, but his eyes sought the Lady Alara as he entered. Kalen's jaw tightened. The Silvermane clan was one of the more powerful, traditionally neutral neighbors. Send him in. The rider was tall, clad in gray and silver. He bowed to Kalen, then his sharp blue eyes found me. King Kalen, I bring words from Alaric, Alpha of the Silvermanes. He paused, his gaze lingering on me just a moment too long. He requests the honor of your presence and that of your promised queen at the gathering of the clans at the next full moon to discuss alliances and the implications of recent developments. The message was polite, but the subtext was clear. The other clans had taken note of me. I was no longer a secret or a rumor, I was a political factor. Kalen's voice was diplomatic steel. Thank your Alpha, we will consider his invitation. When the writer left, the room felt colder. Kalen looked at me, worry in his eyes. The gathering is a test. They wish to see you, to gauge your influence, to see if our union makes me stronger or weaker in their eyes. The world of simple lessons and garden walks was over. The next phase, the political arena, had just begun, and I would be at the very center of it. The invitation changed the atmosphere in the hold. A buzz of anxious anticipation replaced the steady rhythm of daily life. I doubled my efforts to learn, not just Lycan customs, but their politics. Baron became an invaluable tutor, outlining the complex relationships between the Ironwood, the Silvermanes, the grim Frostfang clan to the north, and the reclusive Sunpath tribe. Alaric of the Silvermanes is cunning, Baron said, pointing to a map etched on slate. He plays the long game. He will be observing everything. The Frostfang Alpha, Gorin, values brute strength above all else. He will try to provoke you or Kalen. I absorbed it all, the weight of responsibility settling firmly on my shoulders. This wasn't just about me and Kalen anymore. Our union would affect thousands. My insecurity began to morph into a fierce determination not to be a liability. Kalen, meanwhile, prepared for the journey. One night, under a sky brilliant with stars, we walked the highest parapet. You do not have to go, he said quietly. I could say you are unwell, it would be safer. I stopped walking and faced him. The wind tugged at my hair. And what would that tell them? That the future queen of the Ironwood is too fragile for diplomacy? That you feel you must hide me? No, Kalen, that would undermine you before we even begin. He searched my face, his golden eyes reflecting the starlight. It is a risk. My whole life is a risk now, I said, a newfound strength in my voice. But it is our risk. I stand with you, not behind you. A slow, proud smile spread across his face. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. He took my hand, his touch warm and sure. Then we faced them together, as equals. In that moment, under the infinite sky, something clicked into place. The fear didn't vanish, but it was no longer in control. I was Alara of the Whispering Woods, yes. But I was also becoming Alara of Ironwood, chosen not just by prophecy, but by this incredible man beside me, and slowly by my own choice. We would go to the gathering. We would face the scrutiny of the clans. And we would show them that our union was not a weakness, but the dawn of a new strength. The journey ahead was fraught with danger, but for the first time, I was eager to meet it. My heart was no longer a solitary drumbeat, but part of a powerful, synchronized rhythm, the heartbeat of a people, and the shared pulse of a promise being fulfilled, one courageous step at a time. The journey to the gathering vale was a solemn procession. We were accompanied by a contingent of Kaelin's most trusted guards, Baron and Mina, who insisted a familiar face would comfort me. The path led us through breathtaking, treacherous passes and into a wide valley where the clans met in neutral territory. Tents and pavilions of different hues, silver, bone white, deep green, dotted the landscape like strange flowers. Hundreds of lichen were already there, their combined presence creating a low, palpable hum of power in the air. As our party entered, a hush fell. I felt the weight of countless stairs, a physical pressure against my skin. I rode beside Kaelin, back straight, dressed in simple but finely made ironwood garments. I kept my eyes forward, focusing on the great central pavilion ahead. "Remember your breath," Kaelin murmured, his voice for my ears alone. "You belong here as much as any of them." We dismounted, and the leaders approached. Alaric of the Silvermanes was first, elegant, with hair the color of polished pewter and a smile that didn't reach his cool blue eyes. "Kaelin, you honor us with your presence. And this must be the celebrated Alara." He took my hand, bowing over it. His touch was like ice. "We are all so curious about the woman who captured the Ironwood King's heart." His words were velvet over steel. "The honor is mine, Alpha Alaric," I said, withdrawing my hand with a polite nod. "The tales of Silvermane hospitality are well known." A flicker of surprise crossed his face at my composure. Then came Goran of the Frostfangs, a mountain of a man with a frost-touched beard and eyes like chips of flint. He ignored me completely, clapping Kaelin on the arm with a force that would have felled a tree. "Kaelin, still chasing human whispers, I see. Will your children be raised on stories or on the hunt?" It was a blatant insult. I felt Kaelin tense beside me, but before he could speak, I stepped forward slightly. "The strongest tales, Alpha Goran, are those that teach us when to hunt and when to protect." I look forward to learning of the Frostfang's own legendary tales around the fire. I kept my tone light, conversational, framing his jab as an offer of cultural exchange. Goran stared at me, his brow furrowed as if trying to decipher a complex puzzle. He grunted, a non-committal sound, and turned away. Kaelin shot me a look of stunned pride. The first skirmish was over, and I had not retreated. The gathering was a days-long series of councils, feasts, and ritual displays of skill. I attended every session at Kaelin's side, listening more than I spoke. I learned the rhythms of their debates, the undercurrents of old grievances and shifting alliances. During a feast, I was seated beside Lyra, Alpha of the reclusive Sunpath tribe. She was a severe, graceful woman who had watched me with silent intensity. "You observe much, human," she said suddenly, her voice a soft whisper. "What do you see?" I met her piercing gaze. "I see strength and fear. I see a people proud of their traditions, worried that change means loss." She considered me for a long moment. "And you? Are you change or are you loss?" "I am neither," I said honestly. "I am a new thread. Whether I strengthen the tapestry or unravel, it will depend on the hands that choose to weave with me." A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Lyra's lips. She said nothing more, but later, during a tense council debate about territorial rights, when Goran mocked Kaelin's soft policies, Lyra spoke up. "Wisdom is not softness, Goran, and new perspectives are not weakness. The human's analogy is apt. We are weavers. Let us see the pattern before we judge the thread." The council fell silent. It was the first time a clan leader had openly referenced me in a positive light. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. That night in the quiet of our shared pavilion, Kaelin took both my hands. "You are remarkable," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You turned Goran's insult You won Lyra's consideration. You are not just surviving this, Alara, you are thriving. His praise warmed me from the inside out. I have a good teacher, I replied softly. He shook his head. This is not my teaching. This is your heart, your mind. They see it now as I do. He leaned his forehead against mine, a gesture of profound intimacy and respect. The final challenge is tomorrow, the right of the bonded claim. It is a traditional test for a new pair. We must face it together. Are you ready? I didn't know what the rite entailed, but I saw the faith in his eyes. My answer was simple. With you, I am ready for anything. The rite of the bonded claim was held at dawn in a sacred stone circle at the valley's heart. All the clans gathered around. The air was thick with anticipation. An ancient elder, her face a map of wrinkles, stood in the center. The bond between alpha and consort is the heart of the clan, she intoned. It must be built on trust, understanding, and shared strength. Today, Kaelin and Alara will walk the path of echoes. They will face mirrored challenges. Their success depends not on individual power, but on the harmony between them. My mouth went dry. Kaelin squeezed my hand. Trust your instincts and trust me. We were led to opposite sides of the circle and blindfolded. The world vanished into darkness. You must find each other, the elder's voice echoed, guided only by your bond across a field of obstacles. If you stray, you fail. A horn sounded. I stood, blind and terrified. I could hear faint, shifting sounds around me, stones scraping, whispers that might have been the wind or the crowd. I took one step, then another. Trust your instincts. I forced my breathing to calm. I thought not of fear, but of Kalen, his steady presence at my side. The warmth of his hand in mine, the sound of his voice when he said my name. I focused on that feeling, that anchor. I took a step, and my foot met not grass, but an unstable, rocking log. I wavered, arms windmilling. Panic surged, trust me. I imagined him there, a solid presence ahead. I took a deliberate step forward, finding balance. I navigated the log. Next, a curtain of hanging cords brushed my face. I paused, listening. From my left, I heard a distinct, low hum, a tone Kalen sometimes made when thoughtful. I moved toward it. The challenges continued. A narrow bridge I crossed by imagining his guiding hand, a puzzle of sense I solved by remembering the unique fragrance of the ironwood pines he loved. I was not just finding my way, I was following the thread of him. Suddenly, my hand brushed against another. Fingers intertwined with mine, strong and sure. My blindfold was lifted. Kalen stood before me, his own blindfold gone, his eyes shining with pride and wonder. We stood together in the very center of the circle. The elder nodded, a satisfied smile on her face. The path is walked, the bond is true and clear. A roar of approval, respectful and united, rose from the gathered clans. Even Gorin gave a grudging nod. Alaric's smile was thoughtful, speculative. We had passed the test not as king and human, but as partners. In that moment, under the rising sun, I felt truly accepted. The legacy was no longer a prophecy. It was a promise we were actively building, step by synchronized step. We returned to Ironwood Hold as victors. The mood was jubilant. Our successful navigation of the gathering, and especially the rite, had silenced many doubters within our own walls and strengthened Kaelin's position among the clans. Life settled into a new, purposeful rhythm. I took on formal duties, helping to settle disputes with Mina's guidance, planning the seasonal festivals, working with Baron on trade agreements that considered both Lycan and nearby human settlements. Kaelin and I ruled in tandem, our strengths complementing each other. One evening, months after our return, Baron came to us in the great hall, holding an aged, metal-bound chest. My king, my queen, Scouts clearing an old landslide on the eastern border found this. It was buried in a niche that bore the crescent moon's sigil, my grandmother's sigil. My heart stuttered. Kalen opened the chest. Inside were not jewels but scrolls, the lost archives of my own lineage. We pored over them by firelight. They told of my ancestors, not as passive symbols, but as renowned diplomats and healers who had brokered the first peace between humans and Lycan centuries ago. The prophecy wasn't about blood alone, it was about reviving a lost alliance, a forgotten partnership. This is it, I whispered, tears in my eyes. This is the true legacy, not just heirs, but peace, a bridge between worlds. Kalen looked from the scrolls to me, awe in his expression. They didn't just give me a queen, they returned to us our history, our purpose. You are the key to that, Alara. You always were. The discovery gave our mission a profound new depth. We began planning a great moot, inviting not just Lycan clans, but the delegations from the human kingdoms to the south to renew the ancient accords. The work was all-consuming, but it was our work. One night, as we reviewed treaty points, Kalen set his quill down. "You have given me more than I ever dreamed," he said, his voice soft. "A purpose beyond the throne, a partner in every sense. My heart, it is yours completely." I reached across the table, taking his hand. "And you have given me a home, a family, and a destiny worth fighting for. My heart has been yours since you stood in the rain and promised me a choice." The love between us, grown slowly from respect and shared trials, was now a quiet, unshakable force. It was the foundation upon which everything else was built. The day of the great moot arrived. The hold was filled with a historic buzz. Banners of the crescent moon flew alongside the ironwood tree. Delegations from 3 human kingdoms mingled tentatively with Lycan from all the major clans. The air was thick with hope and nervous potential. Kalen and I stood before the assembled crowd on the main terrace. He spoke first, his voice carrying over the sea of faces. "We gather not as separate peoples, but as neighbors sharing one world. The past reminds us that peace is possible. The future demands that we choose it." Then it was my turn. My heart pounded, but my voice was clear. "I stand as a child of both worlds. I have seen the strength and the heart in the Lycan people, and I carry the hopes and dreams of humanity within me. The old alliance was not a fairy tale. It was a promise. Let us today renew that promise, not for power, but for prosperity, for our children and for theirs." A cheer erupted, loud and long, from human and Lycan throats alike. The talks that followed were tough, but the spirit of cooperation held. By dusk, a new accord was signed, a treaty of mutual protection, trade, and shared stewardship of the lands. As the celebration began under a canopy of stars, Kalen led me to a quiet balcony. Below, the hold glittered with light and life. The sounds of music and laughter floated up to us. He turned to me, his hands on my shoulders. "Ilara, my queen, my partner, my love, the prophecy spoke of heirs, but our legacy is already here. It is in this peace. It is in this united hold. And it is in the life we have built together." He gazed at me, his love shining brighter than any star. "Will you continue to build it with me? Not as a chosen queen, but as my wife in every way for all our days." It was not a demand of prophecy, but a question of the heart. The final, beautiful choice. Tears of pure joy streamed down my face. "Yes, Kalen, 1,000 times yes." He kissed my forehead, a seal of his promise. We turned together to look out at our future. No longer a solitary human or a lonely king, but a united force. The giant Lycan king had knocked on my door, seeking heirs for a throne. But together, we had found something far greater. A love that bridged worlds, a peace that would echo through generations, and a shared destiny written not in the stars, but in the choices we made heart to heart from that day forward. Like the video, subscribe, kiss the bell icon, and comment part 2 if you want the story to continue.